So one of the realities of living in southeastern North Carolina, tropical storms, hurricanes, pretty much every fall, you're going to have some sort of incident, maybe more than one. Hopefully they're minor, but sometimes they're major. So what are some of the benefits of working with Sweyer Property Management when it comes to hurricane season?
Well, none of us want to see that coming. Nobody wants Jim Cantori to visit. The big thing is we have a plan for that. I think it's really important, even if you're talking to other property management companies, that you ask them specifically, what's your plan? Mm-hmm. See if they have a plan.
Right.
We have a plan where we go to 5 different stages. Once the storm's out there, our property managers begin communicating with owners, begin communicating with tenants. One of the things that we're very careful about too is we ask the tenants to notify us if they evacuate. That's super important, because if you don't know that property's empty, there's no one there to report damages after the storm. Once we go to a particular storm stage, we wait at home. Once the storm passed and officials say we can get back on the road, we go to the office. We begin visiting the vacant and evacuated properties first, which is super important to an owner that perhaps might be clear across the world or across the country. And then once we visit the properties that have the damage, we're going to talk to owners, initiate a storm claim, things like that. But really, the most important thing is having a plan and knowing, you may be in California, like an owner I spoke to recently, and after Hurricane Florence, she called her property management company a day later, and they were like, "We're sorry, you're on your own." That's not helpful when you're in California. No. So we go and visit those, and we have vendors on standby, prepared to tarp roofs and things like that, and then we'll help you coordinate getting that claims adjuster in with the tenant.
Yeah, I think there are some aspects of self-managing a property that really aren't too bad. If you have a great tenant and you're just consistently collecting rent and doing small maintenance items, it's really not that bad. And maybe you don't feel the need for a professional property manager. But when a hurricane comes, the last thing you want to be is a self-managing property owner, right?
No, I wouldn't want to do it, because not only are you worried about what's happening at your house, but you're worrying about how you're going to handle if anything happens at both houses.
Right. So when should a property owner check on their insurance when it comes to hurricane season?
Oh gosh, you want to do it before there's something out there. I can tell you that right now.
Before the hurricane.
Before. It's the same thing when people used to order storm panels. You want to order them before.
Yeah.
But once that storm's out there, you can't make any changes to your plan. So I usually encourage owners, like in the spring, start thinking about that. When you start hearing them on the news talk about preparing your, what do they call that? Your hurricane preparedness plan.
That's right.
Where you start gathering all the items.
Right.
Much the same thing. Double check your insurance. With the cost of lumber and some of the other things too, you may want to up your coverage. And a lot of investors looking in the area too, and self-managers, you want to make sure your wind and hail.
Oh, yeah.
You've got enough wind and hail, because that's where that's going to kick in with the storm.
Right.
But I do think when you're self-managing, also you're gonna need to be in communication with that tenant. You need to know what's happening at that property. And oftentimes too, a lot of owners don't even know, like, when can I go in? Can I just walk in? You really need to know some of North Carolina real estate law too.
Right. Yeah, many people are surprised every year to realize that hurricane season actually starts on June 1st. The peak in Wilmington is that mid-September time period. September, October is when we've seen most of our big hurricanes. But it actually starts in June, and it's not out of the realm of possibility for something to come up in the summer. So you really do want to check on your insurance in the spring. Can you talk a little bit about how we assist property owners after hurricanes?
Sure. Like I said, after we get, all clear to get on the road, we actually divide and conquer in our company, because we all want to help each other. There'll be people at the office manning the phones, initiating work orders, communicating with owners about initiating storm claims. We're going to actually go out and walk these properties.
You and me. I've
gotten the keys and I'm going over there. And we assess it very quickly, like, hey, we need a tarp on this roof. We communicate to somebody in the office. It's just that we have a plan. It's not, and it's all hands on deck. Everybody in our company understands that you have to come do something. It might not be what you normally do in your job.
Won't be.
No, but we all chip in.
Right.
And I can't express enough the need for a plan, because when there is no plan, there's chaos.
Right.
And a hurricane's chaos in the beginning anyway. We've learned how to function. I mean, I can remember putting in work orders and talking to people sitting in the Harris Teeter because they were the only place to have the Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
I mean, we do whatever it takes
Right.
to get the job done.
Right.
That's what's important. You want to know somebody has a plan and they're ready to move forward and help you get your property back in working order as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I think one of the unique things about our plan that I really like is that your property manager will still be your point of contact. So rather than your property manager being out inspecting properties and unavailable to communicate with you, the property manager is actually staying in their home or at our office or in a safe location so that they can continue to communicate with you while people like you and me who don't normally inspect properties for our day-to-day job are out doing the inspections so that we can make sure that those communication lines stay open.
Yeah, and it's all hands on deck. It's super. It can be a little bit frustrating sometimes because you're trying to navigate around debris in the road and everything like that. But real estate is an owner's biggest investment. It's an expensive investment.
Yeah.
It's really important that you know who's ever taking care of it has a plan to move forward and to help you getting that property back to where it's going to be earning you income.
Right, and it may take time, right? It takes time to make these repairs, especially when you have a Florence situation. God forbid that ever happens again.
Yeah.
But something like that. But the key, I think, for us, for our owners, is making sure that we're staying in communication.
Exactly.
I think people can understand that it takes a long time, but if they haven't heard from you in a few days, that's when things start to go awry.
Well, your anxiety can go skyrocketing.
Especially if you don't live here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're watching things on the news, and oftentimes, like the Weather Channel can make things sound even worse than they really were.
Right.
And also too, I think it's important because of how well established we are in town, and because of our plan, we have vendors on standby.
Right.
Other people are going to be relying on people that have come in
We're
from
first
out
in
of
line.
town.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and you don't know what you're going to get when you
Right.
get. I mean, when I had all the trees removed on my house, I guarantee you I paid 3 times what it was, but that was the only person I could get.
Yeah, right.
Now, we have people, we have tree removal people, we have roofers.
You know you're getting someone with insurance. You know you're getting someone with a reputation. We're at the front of the line. They answer our call before they answer the person who found him in the yellow pages.
Exactly.
If you still can find yellow pages.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody uses those yellow pages anymore. It's all Google.
Right.
But I talk to owners all the time, and honestly, it surprises me that that's not one of their questions.
Right.
Particularly investors that are from outside of our state.
Right.
So I think it's really important that we continue to educate our investors on, and I have these conversations with them when they're purchasing the property. Make sure you take a good look at the insurance. I'll even refer them to an insurance agent to help them along because they don't know anybody here.
Right. And we're seeing the fact that we are 5 years removed from Florence. We're seeing people start to forget what it was like. I think in 2019, 2020, it was one of the first questions you might have gotten. It was one of the primary concerns. What do I do if my house is uninhabitable? How are you going to help me get back on my feet? We're hearing less of that because we keep getting these tropical storms that are kind of just like nice rain. But the reality is, because of where we live and because of the way that hurricanes work, something like Florence will happen again. It is just a matter of time. We don't know when it is, so we have to stay on guard and make sure that we're prepared.
Yeah, we're prepared for that, but even on a normal day-to-day basis, we review properties twice a year anyway with our property inspector because we have a full-time person that's all he does.
Right.
So he can even come up the backside after a storm. He's double checking, going back over, making sure we haven't sprung a roof leak or something like that. And I think that's important too, that even past the storm, we're continuing to inspect your property.
Right. And one last note, roofers will not go on a roof while it is still raining.
Exactly. They will not.
Don't ask.
Don't ask.